Now, it was a month ago yesterday that this program first brought to your attention the sickening death of George Floyd on that Minneapolis street. Since then, racism and Black Lives Matter have dominated global debate, and there's been good and bad in the response. First, there appears to be proper pursuit of justice in the US, and also, as I showed you yesterday through the eyes of Eddie Betts, the Carlton champion, there's been a useful focus on racism in many countries, including our own. But there's also been massive overreach. As you know, riots, violence, looting and arson in the US, and statues torn down and vandalised, even statues of heroes who stood up to fascism or defeated slavery. And I want to share with you another remarkable episode that shows how we can just need to be calm. We need to be calm and rational, because when we unleash group hysteria, sometimes people can conjure up racism and hatred even where it doesn't exist. Bubba Wallace is an African-American NASCAR driver who's become a focal point for controversy because he's supported and highlighted Black Lives Matter and the whole campaign behind that. And his, of course, is a very patriotic sport. Wallace backed calls to ban the display of the Confederate flag at NASCAR events. It's long been a favourite of race fans from the South. Anyway, he had a big win. The NASCAR authorities banned the flag of the old Confederate Army, and this made Wallace a hero to some, but not to all.
What are you hearing from fans, Bubba, about the NASCAR banning the flag?
You're getting both sides of it. You're getting a lot of positive outreach, a lot of positive impact, and gaining new fans as we go. And then you're getting the fans that will never watch a NASCAR race again, the same fans that never watched NFL after the kneeling, the same fans that are crying out that were ruining their lives and just throwing a pity party as to whether accepting change and understanding why we need this change and why it's such a pivotal moment for our country.
OK, then the reaction took a seemingly ugly turn on Sunday when one of Wallace's crew reported finding a noose in the team's garage at an Alabama racetrack. This immediately conjured up images of racist lynchings from days gone by, and Bubba Wallace tweeted. He said that today's despicable act of racism and hatred leaves me incredibly saddened and serves as a painful reminder of how much further we have to go as a society and how persistent we must be in the fight against racism. So, on the back of this, at the track on Monday, there was an impressive show of support for Wallace from his teammates, competitors and the crowds.
The entire garage area has rallied around Bubba Wallace and the number 43 today. No one is white, black, brown, or yellow. They are all racers, and they are all our heroes.
And the racing driver himself vowed to continue undaunted.
Sorry I'm not wearing my mask, but I wanted to show whoever it was that you're not going to take away my smile, and I'm going to keep on going.
So, up until this point, you might think this episode highlights an ugly case of racism construed by some as a death threat and a defiant and unifying response. Except nobody really provided much detail about this so-called noose and who deployed it and how and why and when and what it might have meant. So the FBI investigated, and overnight they shared their findings.
Driver. The FBI saying, after a thorough review of the facts and evidence surrounding this event, we have concluded that no federal crime was committed. New video evidence showing the noose found in Wallace's garage number 4 was in that garage as early as October 2019, before it was his, and months before Wallace demanded NASCAR ban Confederate flags. This YouTube video, posted in December, appears to show that same garage stall with a pull rope hanging from it in the shape of a noose. It's not known if this is the same video seen by the FBI. His racing team later responding as well. No member of Richard Petty Motorsports nor Wallace had any involvement with the presence of the rope. NASCAR's president Steve Phelps expressing relief.
It is fantastic to hear from the FBI definitively that there was not a hate crime.
Wow, there was no noose. It was all a mistake. So do we think this is a good news story because there was no noose, no threat of a racist lynching? Or is this bad news because it shows that some of us have become so preoccupied with racism and hatred that we're too eager to see it even when it isn't there? For his part, Bubba Wallace tweeted this. He says it's been an emotional few days and that he's relieved the investigation found that this was not what he feared it was. He thanked his team and the FBI for acting swiftly and treating it as a real threat and said he would gladly take a little embarrassment over the alternatives. And he said, make no mistake, although some will try, this should not detract from the show of unity at the track on Monday or the progress they've made to make the sport more welcoming for all. Yes, Bubba ought to be grateful for the show of solidarity, why not? But there's a salient lesson here, isn't there? And that is not to presume the worst in people, not to assign motives, intent and attitudes to others. As I said last night, we've got to stamp out racism. Nothing's more obvious, and peer pressure is the way to do it. But this episode shows that the dangers are there of overstating the problem, inventing hatred, when we all know there's far more goodness around, far more tolerance than the opposite.